This is Scary Movie Fright Night, a podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered. Oh. Okay. Now you have that recorded.
Welcome back, Fright Night friends, to another bonus episode of Scary Movie Fright Night. If you've been listening throughout, you've heard a little bit about my childhood, a little bit about my past, the reason that I'm as demented as I am, and why I love the blood, guts, and gore of a scary movie. And I attribute it all to the demented mind of my mother. So today we have a very special guest. She's in town, and she insisted that we let her come on the show. I said no, but Sam trumped me and said, bring her on.
I want to peel back the curtain of Chris's childhood. I want to unpack all of the deep secrets and hear all of the stories that you wouldn't share directly from your mom.
And so here she is, Melody, Chris's mom, Zarnke is on the podcast.
We're glad you're here. Thanks for being here, Melody.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, hold on.
I can't wait to tell you all the secrets.
Yes.
Yeah, one sec. Welcome, Melody.
Thank you.
We've been waiting for this our whole lives. I won't even get on. Oh, wow. It's still going.
Wow.
Okay.
There,
okay.
Yeah. Standing ovation.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't even get that kind of reception, so welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So,
thank you very much.
Here's a question to start us off. What is the root of your enjoyment of scary movies? Chris has said that he gets his love of scary movies from you. This was something that you shared together, that you bonded over in his youth. Where does your joy of scary movies come from, do you think?
My mother.
Oh.
It's a generational thing. We, just passed it down the line.
So
my mom,
you used to watch scary movies with your mom as well?
Yes.
Nice.
All the time. Yeah, she took us to the drive-in when we were kids to watch Dracula and Frankenstein and all those classic ones. It was great.
Nice.
I had a great childhood with those movies every Saturday night.
Wow, very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so this has been like a favorite genre of yours. Why this genre though? Was it just because that you watched, like your mom wanted to watch these, so you watched them, and then that just developed your passion for them? Or why scary movies? And the reason I ask this is because I'm Team Sam, who has never watched scary movies. I've always chosen not to opt in to the scary ones. So what draws you to them? Why do you keep watching them?
It's like a science experiment. He's trying to figure out your brain and figure out
is
something
good
wrong
luck
with him or something wrong with us.
That's true.
I can solve it right now. It's me. Okay. No. I think it was because we had so much fun when I was a kid, and all sitting around, and there were 5 of us kids and our parents. We were just all squinched together in front of the TV, ready to jump.
Oh.
And it was fun. It was exciting, and that's the main thing about scary movies, is that it makes me jump, and it gets a big reaction.
Oh.
And I think that's what it is.
Well, I like the idea.
Great memories.
I like the idea of it being a family affair, like it's a community event. I told Chris when we went to see Evil Dead Rise in the theater that part of what made it a fun experience was because we were there with all these other people who were also all looking to get scared.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great.
What type of scary movie do you find the most frightening? What scares you the most?
Oh, that's a tough one. It depends on the movie, actually. But mostly I like ones that will make me jump. The gore isn't that big of a deal. I really don't need a lot of gore in a movie, but if it can make me jump, then that's good. You guys were talking earlier about The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes you jump. Definitely makes you jump.
Yeah.
Or like the end of Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
Where she comes right into the camera.
Yes.
Yeah. I like moments like that. Those are my favorite.
Okay. So any type of genre, as long as they have the good jump scares.
Oh,
any type of theme.
Yeah, Right. They have to have the ability to actually scare me.
Yeah. It's like that adrenaline spike when you jump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
Yeah, that's why she used to just be. I would get up in the morning and I would come out and she would just be practicing. She'd just be jumping up and down in the living room because she didn't want to like have a jump scare and then pull a muscle, right? So I made that up. That never happened.
No. But it was a nice thought.
And so, but this leads into why she purposely sat me down at 3 years old and was like, "You're gonna watch The Shining."
Wait. That's not how you told the story. That is not. No.
Yeah, I put him in a seatbelt in the chair so that he could not move and forced him to watch
his helmet
it.
to keep him safe. Yeah. Oh, I know.
The heck with the helmet. Yeah. Just let him go with that,
Yeah.
No, he. It was probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever done, and I don't mean embarrassing in a just a typical way. I was so mortified.
Oh.
Now I could be embarrassed. Back then, I was horrified that my little son sat there watching The Shining from the beginning to the end and did not move. And do you want to see how he was sitting when I found him?
Yes.
When I woke up?
Okay, we have to describe this because not everybody's going to be able to see.
Yeah. He was sucking his thumb, eyes wide open, staring at the screen.
Just totally enthralled with what was happening.
Oh my God, I thought I was going to die. Yeah. It was horrible. What a horrible moment.
But he turned out okay.
Yeah. Solid 5 out of 10.
Sure he did. Yeah. Sure he did.
Solid 5 out of 10.
I have a great son. Okay.
Yeah, you do. Well, and another...
You heard it here, folks. That's all we need to hear. I'm great. And no,
you've got to record it.
Was there more? Yeah. Was there more? I'm sorry. That's what I came for.
Okay.
Chris is just looking for
I did my job.
Validation. Yeah. Well, but also I like the story that he told around when he would go to the video store and he would call home and like read the descriptions on the... tell us that story again. Let's recap that.
Well, we lived right across the street from a video store, which was very nice. And I'd get in the mood for a scary movie and I'd say, "Okay, Chris, run across the street."
Now, was this like a Blockbuster or like an independent?
It was an independent one.
Okay.
Yeah. It was. They were great.
Yeah. It was called the Video Buff.
The Video Buff.
They loved us.
Nice. Are they still there?
No longer in business.
No.
They swapped to another name at some point and then they went out of business. Now it's a bar.
Right.
It's like a Joe's Sports Bar or something. They don't have videos there for rent, I don't think.
Okay. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Did you try? That's okay. But he would go across and he would pick out certain movies that he'd think I'd like. And then he'd call me. They would let him use the phone.
Yeah.
And he would call me and tell me what the movies were about. And I picked from there.
Nice. So it was great. It's kind of the same process that we do here on the show where Chris reads the descriptions and then I get to pick what we're going to watch on the next episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you know where you got the idea.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah. It was great.
All right. So I'm going to put you in the hot seat for a minute. What is the all-time scariest movie? If you had to pick one of all the movies you've seen, which one would you say is probably the scariest of all?
Wow. I should have thought about this.
Well, we can narrow it down.
It's really...
If you have a couple that come to mind.
Well, The Shining always comes to mind when I think of that because that, not just because of what it did to my poor son, but yeah, it was one that just stays with you because it's so awful, awful. But I think it was. I've read all of Stephen King's books, so it's really hard to compare. Anyway, The Exorcist. The unrated version, the new version where they put in the cutout scenes with all that in there.
And don't spoil too much.
I'm not saying.
Hasn't seen it yet.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. So The Exorcist.
Yes, that one was very scary as well. Okay. Yeah. I think those two are on the top of the list.
Wow. Those two on the top of the list. So The Shining, what's your opinion around the fact that Stephen King was not... So you read the book, The Shining?
Yes.
we talked about how he wasn't a big fan of the movie adaptation because it was different from the book. What are your thoughts on that?
A lot different. It was a lot different.
Yeah.
They made it into a different type of film than it was in the book, in my opinion, of course. The Stephen King, it's hard to say. His story was a little bit more, with more emotion to it than the movie. The movie was very dark and very, horrifying, and you didn't feel a lot of emotion and everything. But in the books, he included that. Plus, there were parts they didn't put in. I mean, and they changed quite a bit. But
when we read about that too, right? Like Stanley Kubrick made a lot of changes, and then Sam, I think, this goes pretty far back, but we talked about that you never really felt love from Jack Nicholson's character,
right?
At all, right? Like you got a little bit of him as a person, but very quickly on, he was already kind of leaning towards that
dark side.
And they didn't even make him someone that you wanted to root for. I think, we've seen movies where, someone ends up a villain, but you're rooting for them. You're like, no, come on. You
Carrie,
can,
another Stephen King.
Like Carrie. Yeah. Or like, episode 3 of Star Wars, where you're like, no, you don't have to become Darth Vader. Even though, it's destined because they came out in an order that, that wasn't, we already knew it was going to happen. But anyway, so it's interesting.
Now, Melody, have you read Carrie?
Yes.
So you've literally read every Stephen King novel. That's a lot of
Correct.
That's a lot of novels, isn't it?
It's been over a lot of years.
Yeah. What do you remember around the differences between the book, Carrie the book, and Carrie the movie?
The basis of the story was the same. He wrote the book in a reporter's view. He had gone to the town to do a report on Carrie and what had happened there during the dance and all that. So that was really the biggest difference, but the rest stayed with the story. It told the story of the mother and and Carrie and everything. So it pretty much stayed with the story.
Okay.
It was good.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. It's interesting that you said that The Shining is one of the scariest movies that you've seen. I struggled with it. I ended up I didn't find it as scary. I think because I lacked that emotional connection to Jack. That's his name, right? Jack.
Yeah.
And
Jack Torrance.
Jack Torrance. Yeah. I kind of downplayed the fear element, I think, while I was watching that one.
Well, and I was just having this conversation recently. I think I might have been talking to my mom about it as well. But that's kind of what's kind of interesting about this journey is that. So, Mom, how old were you when The Shining came out? When you watched it, roughly?
Oh, I can't even remember. I was probably in my 20s.
Yeah, so
somewhere around there.
In your 20s, but you've been watching horror movies before that. And so, like, you were used to scary movies. They had an impact on you mentally. And you also were watching it when it was newer, right? So from your perspective, you were watching it when it was like the peak of what was considered scary versus, now we're watching The Conjuring, we're watching Paranormal Activity. People that are 18 in 2007 are going to the theater and watching The Conjuring, and that's what they're seeing. I'm in the middle where I grew up watching scary movies and I watched The Shining when I was 3. Not that, that's where my memory lies, but I watched it and it had an impact on me, not too far beyond that period of when it was still pretty new. But Sam, as being someone who's fresh to the genre, you're going in a lot of years later and trying to determine if it's scary. I think that coming in with the fresh perspective in 2023, it's going to be hard to find it scary.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of that, I think any list, because it shows up on all the lists of like scariest movies of all time, I think that there's a bit of nostalgia associated with that because you remember watching it the first time you watched it 20 or 30 years ago, and then it was scary. Yeah. But if you take all that precursor knowledge away and watch it today, then you're like,
Right.
It reminds me of when the Dracula movie came out with Winona Ryder and back then, and Oh, I just loved that movie. To me, it was wonderful. It had it had the scary parts, it had the romance. And if I watch it today, I think differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold
It's
up
a
after all
whole,
this
yeah,
time.
yeah, but it was great at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting.
that makes sense. What's the first scary movie that you remember seeing?
Well, the one that stands out the most was The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Oh, I've never even heard of this.
And I know. It's way, way back. I was very little
Yeah.
at the drive-in movie with my parents. And it was about a guy who somehow was exposed to something that caused him to start shrinking. So that by the end of the movie, he's down to nothing. But it's his little travel along the way when he's a few inches tall and a spider comes around. Yeah. I had nightmares about that one.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I remember that. That's the one. And then I remember seeing Frankenstein and Dracula when I was that little, the originals, so Die, My Darling. Oh my goodness. That really dates me. And the original Haunting, they made a remake of that about, I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, those are the ones I remember.
Chris, we should add these to the list. I think it would be fun to go explore.
Yeah, the originals.
Yeah,
I think you're right. I think we should figure out a way to incorporate them.
Because even if they're not the most scary things we've ever seen, those movies would have, inspired the next generation of movies, which would have inspired the next generation. So there's this like sort of chain reaction or whatever of the things that are.
It's good for
No,
and it's good for. Well, I was gonna say good for your education, but honestly, I haven't seen them either. So it's good, like as we both become entrepreneurs, right? Like that's not the word. As we both become horror movie aficionados, what am I saying? English is hard. It's fine. But as we both become experts, right? I think we will both be able to recognize some of those things moving forward. I think it would be interesting to go back and see what we think, or if it's just see what it looks like today.
Yeah. Okay, here's another question for you. So Chris and I went to see Evil Dead Rise in the theaters, and I think we had sort of not really opposite opinions, but we just had different opinions around the experience in the theater, because there's all these people who are. I mean, the theater was full because we went to see the weekend it came out. So everybody's there. They're super excited. There's a lot of energy in the room. There was also a lot of verbal reactions to the movie, you might say. So like something would happen in the movie. Obviously people scream, but then, some people are like shouting at the screen and like saying things during the movie. And Chris, I'll let you share your opinion about it. My opinion was that while it can be a little distracting, I kind of liked the energy. I liked that people were being like silly and rambunctious because it made it feel like it was a sort of a communal experience at the theater. But I know, Chris, what was your take on it?
Yeah, I was so annoyed. So like screaming or being scared, I get it, right? Or like it's like
because that's like involuntary,
right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, or when someone laughs at a comedy movie, but when people are treating it like their own living room, which honestly, I actually just read a news article the other day about how people don't know how to be in theaters anymore. And it was a news article talking about how I don't know what research they did to pull this information. I can't even cite my source because now I don't remember who it was by. But it was by someone that I feel like is a relatively good source because I try to only take in media from good sources. But they talked about how post-pandemic people are more on their phones than they were before, and people are talking and like being louder and less respectful in theaters. Again, I don't know if that holds true across the world, across the country, across certain whatever. But I think it's funny because that's kind of what we're talking about is the dude next to me talking at like room voice to his to the girl he was with, and I'm just like, so to me it's a balance. I think that was over the top, and I very quickly I'm like, I could have watched it at home if I wanted. No one would have been talking in my home. It would have been more peaceful in my home. But part of it for me though is I want it dark, I want it loud, I want to experience it.
Yeah.
So so I got frustrated.
So Melody, how often are you a frequent theater goer?
Not anymore. I don't do a lot of trips to the theater. The last time I think I was at the theater was when Chris and I watched It.
The new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was in California and I was in Florida, and we went at the same time.
Oh,
we put a headphone
we
in
had
and tried
earphones in.
Yeah, it didn't really work, but
we were only 30 seconds difference in the movie when we were sitting there watching it. So you could, like, he knew what was going to happen before me.
But were you like talking to each other, like reacting?
No, we were being very quiet because we were in a movie theater.
Right.
Also, we have manners.
Yeah. Also, you couldn't hear anything. All I could hear coming through the speaker was just like really loud noise, as you can imagine, like because it was just inundated by all the noise of the theater. It was
but
fun.
It was still fun.
But yeah.
And then afterwards,
it was great being able to sit there with somebody.
That is cool. That is really cool. And then were you able to like debrief? Yeah, afterward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
No, but yeah.
Usually, when one of us brings up that movie, it spins us off into like a 5-minute thing, just
like a debate. Yeah,
comment like which just trying to we get lost.
Yeah. I've heard you.
Yeah. You're like, move on. Okay, we get it. Yeah. That's funny. Okay, so a lot of Stephen King movies then. Do you have a favorite Stephen King? Well, let me ask you this. Do you have a favorite book? Do you have a favorite movie? And are they the same?
My favorite book was The Stand.
The Stand. Okay.
Very big book. And they made a show on TV. And I think they're planning on doing it. No, they did do it again.
They did do it again. Yeah.
Okay.
They made a show. They made a movie and a show.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It was really good.
They remade it a couple times.
It's a horror. It's horror.
The original was the one I liked best.
Yeah.
Horror-esque.
It's the fight of evil versus good versus evil is what it is.
Like
and
the fight. Like the end of time fight.
End of
Okay.
And it's really it's a heavy book, but it's really good.
Yeah, like 5
really
or 10 pounds at least.
Well written. Extremely good. It was one of his best, I think.
Would it fall into this category? Like, would it be a candidate for Scary Movie Fright Night?
Well, it's got some moments in it, but it probably, I don't know if it would fit perfectly.
Yeah. It's probably more drama.
Okay.
It's more, it's freaky more so than it is scary.
Yeah, it would fit more. I think it would fit more along like.
You don't like to think.
It would fit more along Train to Busan lines, and I don't mean like that there's any parallels, but what I mean is how we discuss like human interaction and the conflict, the human conflict.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's zombies. This one's a lot of human conflict. Oh, and then there's God and the devil. Like
no jump scares.
I mean,
there's few.
Oh,
the devil can be jumpy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The devil wears basketball shoes.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
See,
I don't know,
he's good. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, because he's jumpy. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're Prada because the devil wears Prada.
That's good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll cut that. It's fine.
Yeah, this is how this usually goes, Melody.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your favorite. Was that also your favorite movie, or do you have a different Stephen King movie?
Well, Stephen King has a variety. He doesn't do all horror, but if you want to know my favorite horror movie of Stephen King's, Carrie is right up there at the top. It was because it was so much like the book and it was so well done.
Yeah.
She was such a nice girl. And I think that's what I liked about it, is she was a good person and she had a good heart, and people mistreated her and they got their just rewards for that. But it was just well made, and the acting was back then, these are classic people, this is Sissy Spacek and the one who played her mother, which my mind is blank right now, but you should know that. Christopher, do you remember?
Piper Laurie.
Piper Laurie. Yes. And they just did such a wonderful job. And that's what made me like it more so than necessarily anything of the gore or anything like that. But it was such a nice story until the end. But it really was.
That's true.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we reflecting on Carrie, it felt like up until the prom scene, it wasn't even a scary movie. I mean, she had some trauma with her mother, but there wasn't any. I don't remember there being any jump scares or obviously no death or anything up until the final scene in the movie.
Yeah. There's like a cracked mirror. There was a couple indications, right? I think I quoted it to quote myself that we talked about her mom being a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah. And that was
I'm going to make a T-shirt that shows Carrie's mom, and it says "Cuckoo."
And she's like eating Cocoa Puffs. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
That was the first movie that actually jumped at the end because the resolution had happened. Like Carrie was gone. The house had been it fell into the earth, and at that point, I felt like all the tension was gone. So I was like totally relaxed. And Sue, her friend, was like dreaming, or we didn't know it was a dream, but whatever. She goes to visit the grave, and I was just so like at peace, like, okay, everything's done, it's all resolved. And then when the hand comes up out of the ground, I was like, oh, and it's not that it was anything particularly scary about a hand coming out of the ground. It was just a good jump moment.
It's just it was sudden, yes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it got me, and I think I knew it was going to happen. So.
Yeah. Cool. Those were my main questions. Those are all my questions. Yeah. What about you? Do you have other questions, or do you want to tell your scary story?
What about you, Mom? Do you have any questions for us?
Oh yeah.
I can say anything I want.
Yeah.
I mean, you could. I might keep it in.
No, I have no questions. I think you guys are doing great, and I love your podcast. So.
Oh, thanks.
You guys are really great together.
Do you have any good stories of Chris when he was a kid that he wouldn't tell on his own?
Well, it depends on... No, I won't tell that story. I'm sorry, Chris,
don't tell the story of the time that you changed my diaper and I peed in my mouth, okay? Exactly. And also, that is not going on the air, because that is a true story.
Oh, Chris is a good shot, though. Let's just put it that way.
I don't know if this will work for us to actually air it and have it be scary, but I think Sam would appreciate this story. And so as listeners may remember, I've mentioned a couple times, my mom suffers from narcolepsy and cataplexy, and so she finds herself in states sometimes frequently in which she hallucinates. And generally speaking, when she's in those states, and correct me, if I get any of this wrong, right? She knows she's in the state, but everything is real, right? So it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. And so after hearing about how Sam loved the basement scene in The Conjuring, where the ball came out of nowhere, I was wondering if you could recap the time about the ball coming down the stairs.
Okay. Well, I was on the couch in the living room, which faces the stairs. And there was a scary movie on TV to begin with, but there always is. And I had all the lights off. And I'm sitting there, and I could feel that I was going into that state. But even though I know I'm in that state, I don't realize what's happening is a hallucination. So I hear bouncing up at the top of the stairs. And of course, I'm frozen. I can't move. And I'm just staring at the stairs. And pretty soon, a ball comes bouncing. I'm the only one home, okay? And a ball is bouncing down the stairs.
Oh my gosh.
You have no idea how terrifying that is. And then to come out of it and realize it was all in my head. But it was horrible.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible.
That is...
Even now, when I think about it, I get chills. It was awful. It was one of the worst. I mean, I've had some bad hallucinations over times, but that one was the scariest.
There's something really terrifying around, because when you describe a ball, I think of like a ball that like a child would be playing with. So the thought of like a ghost child or like throwing a ball down the stairs, that
just
really,
one step at a time.
Yeah. Well, and like Chris said in The Conjuring, that scene where the ball just comes out of the basement, I think that was the first big moment that I was like, oh, hell no. Like, get out of that house. It's time to move. I don't know who's back there throwing this ball, but we don't need to stay in this basement 1 second longer.
Nope.
Yes, I knew the feeling.
Wow. That's very spooky.
Yeah. Thanks for recapping that. Ever since Sam had that reaction from The Conjuring, that was the initial immediate thing I thought of. I didn't tell him
when I saw it. That's what I thought of.
Yeah. It's funny that I can picture that story in my head from you telling me about it, and I obviously still to this day remember you telling me about it. So it's interesting. The horror movie that is your mind.
Oh, definitely.
All right, so Friday Night Friends, we have one more treat for you before we log off of this super fun bonus episode. But as mentioned, obviously we're doing this because my mom is visiting right now, even though for any clips that we make, it looks like she's in a different room because my studio is a closet. But my aunt is also with us, and it turns out that my aunt has a pretty spooky story, a ghost story to tell us, a very recent haunting that she's experienced. She is not going to come on the air and tell the story. And we thought, what a better, fun way to do it than have me read the story as if I were my aunt. So just imagine that I'm a 72-year-old woman, okay? And I know my Aunt Becky's listening right now, and she's going to call me and yell at me if I don't get this right. But so set the scene. I'm a 72-year-old woman, and I live with my mom. And my mom, not her mom. Okay, we're already confusing things. The title of this story is Haunted by My Dead Husband. My husband, Bud, passed away almost 2 years ago. But most recently, I'm convinced that he's haunting me at nighttime. Nothing seems to be different in my evening routine. I go to bed, normal time, get comfy, and go to sleep. But now 3 different times over the last year or so, I'm sound asleep and awoken by a loud voice yelling my name.
Becky! Becky! Becky!
Which jolts me awake, and no one is there. Bud used to yell my name just like that all the time to get my attention from across the house. And the last time he did it was 3 days before he died. Then, about a week ago, I was abruptly woken up by someone grabbing my shoulder and shaking me back and forth. I lived with my sister Melody and thought it was her, until I opened my eyes, and again, no one was there. Cool. I guess should we wrap it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to thank Melody for joining us to do an episode. It's been fun because at the very origin of Scary Movie Fright Night, Chris talked about the bonding that the two of you had over watching scary movies, which really shifted my mindset of thinking of scary movies as like something that I dreaded to, oh, this is something that could bring joy and community into people's lives. So maybe I should just embrace it and give it a try. So from the beginning, your spirit has been a part of this show. And so thanks for joining us and telling us more about yourself and Chris on this episode.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, having your spirit involved, it's like you're haunting our hearts every day.
In the best way possible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Friday Night Friends. So I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode where my mom came on and said a bunch of embarrassing stuff that I cut that will never make the air. But it's been a pleasure having her on board. We're going to keep releasing occasional bonus content while we prepare for the next season, coming soon to you. But on that note, if you haven't done so yet, head over to Spotify, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review. Let us know what you think. And until next time, Friday Night Friends,
go enjoy some self-scare.
you want to say an outro, Mom? Do you want to say like "yeehaw" or something cool?
I don't do cool. I'm a mom.